Are you able to automatically mute everybody from?
Yes, everyone's been muted. So, okay, let's see. I'm going to give another 30 seconds or so to see if anyone else pops in, and then we will get started. So thank you so much for your time today. We're really glad you're taking the time to be with us. And let's just begin. So as I said, my name is Joanne Wong. I am the Director of Corporate Services at the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. We're really happy to be partnering with Vistra Energy today for this for this How to Do Business with webinar. Just a quick housekeeping item. All participants are muted upon entry. We are recording this webinar, and you'll have the chance during this webinar to ask questions via the chat function, which will be managed by Mary Gano and Heather Burge. Also, we will be opening it up for live Q&A at the end of the presentation, so you can also, if you don't have a chance to ask your question during the presentation, you can ask it live at the end. And I'm going to turn this over now to Peter Hurst, our President and CEO.
Good morning. I'm Peter Hurst, the President of the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. I want to thank all of you for signing up and attending this morning. I want to thank the Vistra Energy team for taking the time to do this, this very informative presentation. And I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. I have the pleasure today of introducing the star of the show, Heather Herndon Wright. She is the Director of Supply Chain Diversity for the Vistra Energy family of companies, which includes corporate services, power generation, and electric retail. In this role, she leads the effort for the development, promotion, and oversight of a national strategy and architecture to increase the inclusion and growth of both diverse and small business enterprises across the supply chain, from suppliers to channel partners. Previously, she was an entrepreneur. She was the President and Chief Executive Officer of Herndon Wright Enterprises, a certified WBE business management and consulting firm with an emphasis on the growth and development of the diversity companies and corporate diversity initiatives. She's also a publisher. She was the publisher of the Women's Enterprise magazine, where she was the executive producer of the international award-winning documentary Business, America's Game, Where Are the Women? And the book, Seeds of Success. She's also served in a number of leadership positions outside of corporate America. She was the founding executive director of the North Texas Women's Business Council and senior director of alliance relationships for the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, where she participated as a founding board member. She also has served in other positions in corporate America. She was the National Director of Supply Chain Diversity for both Lucent Technologies and Fujitsu Network Communications. She is the founding and current chair of the board of directors of the National Veteran-Owned Business Association, and she currently serves on the board of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. She is a very, very busy woman. She chairs the Utility Industry Group of NMSDC, and she serves on the executive committee for the Edison Electric Institute Business Diversity Group and the Institute for Supply Chain Management. She has been honored with the Women's Business Enterprise National Council Applause Award, the Dallas-Fort Worth Minority Supplier Development Council, and the Women's Business Council Southwest Volunteer of the Year Awards. And on a personal note, she was selected as the Texas Best Mom by the Native Texan Hall of Fame. She has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Texas, and I'm a Texan, so I'm very proud of that. And she is most proud to be married to Randolph Wright. She has 3 children, 4 perfect grandchildren, and a granddaughter. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Heather and thanking her in advance for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much, Peter. I think that's the first time anybody read all of it. As you're very old and have been around a while, but love what I do. I'm very passionate about supply chain diversity and really growing and developing our MBEs, our WBEs, our BBEs, our LGBTBEs, and our DOBEs. So I've been kind of joking lately, we may have to add a category for those of us that have not had COVID-19 going forward, because we're all going to be stuck in our homes. And we're going to have a whole nother business element development group for that group of people, because they won't be able to get out. Hopefully that won't be true, though. We appreciate your time and appreciate the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council giving us the opportunity to present how to do business at Vistra. We are a little bit different than most of the companies maybe that you do business with, because as an electric company, we're very regional in nature and not national. So we've got a couple of unique things. But before we get started, if I could go ahead and introduce my team. They're going to be working with you to help answer some of your questions as we go along in the chat function. Mary Gano is our program manager. She oversees all of our pre-qualification efforts, our capacity building and development program, our initial supplier onboarding, making sure that you all have the opportunity to present a capability study or a capabilities presentation, not only to us, but to the right people in the business, both from the supply chain category management perspective, and then also from the end user business perspective. Because one of the things that we found is wonderful a supplier as you may be, and as great as it may be, that supply chain knows you, and all of our supplier sourcing professionals know you. You're in 27 bids a year. If business doesn't know you and they don't have a relationship with you, they're not going to award the business. So our pre-qualification process goes through making sure that you also have that introduction into the end user within our business in addition to supply chain. So Mary handles all of that. Mary, can you wave? And then Heather Burge, God bless her heart, is our recent newest hire. She's our corporate coordinator, and we had a name discrimination issue early on. Mary got past that because she was the best person for the job. But there are times it's a little bit confusing because you don't know which Heather you might be going back and forth with on email. So Heather Burge is that one. Wave your hand. And I'm Heather Herndon Wright. So that's the supply chain diversity team, the very small but mighty team within Vistra Energy. But we do have a lot of top-down support, and it truly is an integrated function across our entire supply chain organization, and as I mentioned, across the full business. So we're very fortunate and blessed to have a strong supply chain diversity effort within Vistra Energy. So I think actually I'm about to start going to the presentation. If you can go to the next slide, I'll try to kind of keep it in order. Just to give you a little bit of background on who Vistra Energy is, we are a fully integrated energy company. We're not an actual utility. So typically when you think of a utility, you're referring to a regulated business that has poles and wires. We generate electricity. So we've got 55 power plants across 12 states. And we have solar, we have coal, we have natural gas. We are also starting to look at, we're the largest purchaser of wind energy, although we don't produce it. But we're decommissioning a lot of the coal plants, and I'll talk about this a lot, moving more toward the renewables. Battery storage is a big effort for us right now as well. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's our power generation company. So once you generate the power at the power plant, it goes into kind of a substation outside the power plant into the transmission and distribution provider. So they then transmit the high voltage electricity into your populated areas, and then they distribute it down to a lower voltage into our homes and businesses. So at the smart meter on your home or your business, from that point on, your retail electric provider takes over. So we also have multiple retail electric providers. We generate the power, we retail sell it, we do not transmit or distribute any of it. So the way I kind of like to describe that is that the transmission and distribution piece is truly the poles and the wires. So if you change who your electric provider is, if you decide today you're buying from, say for instance, you're buying from Ambit Energy, and tomorrow you want to change to any one of the G&Es, right, which are also some of our retail brands, they're not going to move the poles and wires because you changed electric companies that you buy your electricity from. Those stay consistent, and that's a fee that's in your bill. Or depending on the state you're in some instances, that's who you get your bill from. That's who you know. And the retail provider is buried down in the bottom of the bill. In Texas, where we're headquartered just north of Dallas, out of Irving, Texas. But as I mentioned, we're in 12 different states with the power generation plants. We're in 20 states plus the District of Columbia for our retail electric brands. So, and every one of those states operates differently. It's kind of like the insurance industry where it's regulated at the state level. So in Texas, it's the retail electric provider you would see commercials for that you're going to get your bill from. And then the transmission distribution company becomes a fee that's down in the bottom of your bill. I'm not quite sure how it is in all the different New England states. It may be different again in state by state. So these brands that are on here may be ones that you're aware of or that you're not familiar with. So that's one of the reasons we at least wanted to show you. Luminant is our generation company. And then Dynegy also, we acquired Dynegy 2 years ago. They're part of that generation company. They're also one of our retail brands. CTG&E is one of the retail brands, Massachusetts G&E, and also New England G&E, gas and electric. Those are some retail brands we bought recently when we acquired Creus. So we, just to give you a little background for us as well, we were formerly Energy Future Holdings. You may have known us that iteration back prior to 2016. Went through a bankruptcy. We were at the front end of that with a lot of the electric company bankruptcies, and then emerged in 2016 as Vistra Energy. And the reason they selected that name is because it reflected a vision of the future, but also the tradition of a 60, 80-year-old company in across Texas that has been global, come back to just Texas, and now we're looking at multiple states nationally. So it's just kind of morphed over the years, as many of the other industries have, based on the financial situation, the economic environment of the country, and on regulatory requirements. So while we are fully competitive, we're not a regulated entity. We also have a nuclear power plant. I forgot to mention that. And so obviously there are certain regulations we abide by in the generation side of the business. So today we approximately have 5,500 employees, and about 11 billion in revenue. We just announced yesterday that we moved up from, I think we were at 355 on the Fortune 500 last year to 270. So we're number 270 on the Fortune 500 now. We are publicly traded. When we emerged from bankruptcy in 2016, we were listed again on the New York Stock Exchange in, I believe, October of 2016. And then we acquired Dynegy, then we acquired Creus, we acquired Ambit. We're in the process now of building the largest battery storage facility in the world out of California. We took one of our decommissioned natural gas units and repurposed that to a battery storage facility. So today, the largest battery storage facility in the world is, Tesla owns it in Australia. It's about 186 megawatts. The one that we will that will actually go online in December is the 300 megawatt facility. So we're moving forward in the renewable space. You can go into, and one of the, what you see down on the bottom of this slide is a Buy Those That Buy Us logo with the DFW Minority Supplier Development Council, of which I'm on that board as well. And our company has been on that board since the very beginning. We implemented a program basically to look at those companies that are committed to supply chain diversity, have strong initiatives, and how can the MBEs actually develop this program to say, we want to give back to you. We want to buy from those that buy us. So that's how the genesis of this program started. And so every year we basically have to fill out a form to be a Buy Those That Buy Us corporation to show the diversity participation that we have, the MBE participation. We provide all of our spend with our MBEs, and it's evaluated, and then we're hopefully awarded the Buy Those That Buy Us seal. So that's what that is. We're proud to be part of that with the DFW Council. This shows you exactly where we're located across the US, and it breaks down. I know it's kind of an eye chart for me, so I'm not sure if it is for you all as well, but we can provide these slides to you afterwards too. It breaks down where we have lignite coal plants, where we have gas plants, where we have the nuclear power plant. The one nuclear power plant we have is down in Glen Rose, Texas, where our solar facilities are, as well as where our retail offices are. And it lists them there kind of in the area. I won't read the slide to you, but that's basically what we've been talking about, is a visual of where we have physical assets. Next slide. This is another overview of our brands and kind of how we are broken out across the market and what type of energy we produce today. So again, we're mixing our fuels between nuclear and gas, natural gas, fossil fuels, and then the renewables with the solar. So we're kind of, as I mentioned, decommissioning a lot of our lignite coal plants and commissioning several of the solar. A lot of them we're converting to solar as well. So next slide. This is us specifically from a retail perspective in New England. So I don't know if any of you all might be customers. Certainly put it on the chat. We'd love to know that you're current customers of ours today. If you're not, we would like to ask you to become customers. We are definitely committed to supplier diversity, and we would certainly love for you all to be able to grow your companies and buy more electricity from us. And we really do see it as a very cyclical relationship. In fact, that's the reason you don't hear us, we're not referred to as a supplier diversity initiative. We are a supply chain diversity initiative, because we not only work with suppliers that we buy from, but we also have channel partners that we sell through into the end user market, to the B2C market. So we buy from and we sell through diverse suppliers. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we're going to get specifically into our supply chain diversity initiative. And again, a lot of words, a lot of text, but this is kind of how we operate every year. We have a strategic planning meeting, our very small but mighty team, and we'll incorporate some other individuals with it at times as well. But this is our primary objective. We're really wanting to focus on profitability of the company. It is a very business-driven initiative for us. In fact, we don't even call it a program, because it's part of our overall corporate business strategy. It is built into the AIP, our bonus program for our executives, for our supply chain, all of our supply chain individuals. So we really do look at it across the company, and we are looking at how do we introduce suppliers that will increase profitability for us. So we're looking at, they either increase market share, retain market share, decrease cost, or avoid cost, bottom line. And how do they do that? And obviously, I mean, that's another whole seminar on what those 4 things fall into those buckets. But that's really what we're looking for you all to do as MBE suppliers for us, is show us how you're going to do one of those 4 things for our business. And that's part of what we look at as we pre-qualify you and move you into our supply chain organization. One thing I will say that we don't do, as a former certified supplier myself, I hated the portals, hated having to go out and fill them out as a gatekeeper, you know, for every corporation out there. And I realize they serve a purpose, they're valuable, you're able to look at that particular company, you know, they want to do business with you. For me, it just felt like it went into cyber black hole. So when I came on board about 10 years ago, we eliminated our direct portal. We do require third-party certification to be included in our diversity spend. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in another slide or two. But because of that, we rely on the NMSDC Central to source our MBEs. We bank link to source our WBEs, Novoba for our VBEs, and we just added LGBT and Dobies in the last 2 years. So, or the last year, this year will be our first year of really tracking them. So we've joined those organizations for those databases. So as we have what's called a rule of at least 1, and it is not the ceiling, it is the floor, at least 1, not the rule of 1, but at least 1, where every one of our competitive bid processes should have at least 1 diverse and small business in every bid process. So we're looking at them to go find an MBE from the NMSDC database. So I'll kind of stop right here real quickly and emphasize the importance of, when you all recertify, there's a business description component. In addition to your NAICS codes, we don't really source by NAICS codes. We have category managers that are going to go in and look at keywords for whatever they're sourcing. And it may be, if it's on the IT side, they may be looking for Microsoft Gold or certain certifications that are specific to that industry. Or if we're looking for, I know Sarah's was on this, crane providers. We're going to want to know, for instance, do you lease them? What are the areas that you work in? Where do you want to provide that good or service? How do you mobilize? Those type of things. So if you can put those things in your business description, that's really what they're going to go to. They'll also go to your website and look at what you are able to do. But they're going to start out from a sourcing to even find the MBEs that they'll include in bids from NMSDC Central. And that's another thing that Mary does as well, and I do, and Heather Burge. But we will go in when there's a bid opportunity. We are proactively looking for suppliers. We have a monthly meeting with our Supply Chain Diversity Working Group, which is made up of my boss, our CPO, and his direct reports, and us. And we go in and we evaluate every bid opportunity that's coming up within the next 30 days. And then how do we identify suppliers that can be included in that? Plus, our entire sourcing team and category management team has also been trained on the databases to be able to utilize those and go find them as well. So it's so important in your business description. While it's wonderful you've been in business 150 years and you have the best quality and the most customer service and blah, 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 the best value, we need to know what you do. If you are a paper company, tell us that you manufacture paper. If you are a staffing company, you're staffing, contingent labor, temp services. Right now, we don't need any of those. I'll talk about those in a minute. But use all those buzzwords for your industry, because that's how we're going to get sourced with Vistra Energy. Okay, next slide. This is going into some of the do's and don'ts. Be sure that you do research, and I know so many of you guys know this already. You've heard this a million times, but really do research the corporate websites and their filings, particularly if they're a publicly traded company. Know what their financials look like, know what they do. Like I said, for us, we're very unique in the utility industry. There's like us and NRG, we're the only two in the industry that are fully competitive, that have just generation and just retail with no poles and wires, no transmission distribution. So we're very different than what you would think of as your standard utilities. So understand us, what we do, what we buy. We obviously have a supplier diversity section on our website as well as just supply chain. It lists our terms and conditions. We start out at net 60. So know those type of things. If you are in the generation space and you're actually going to be at a power plant working on site of one of our power plants, we also require that you're part of the ISN network for safety and insurance requirements. So those are certain things that are just table stakes for us. To be included in our diversity efforts, you do need to be certified, not necessarily by NMSDC, although that's what we use as a sourcing tool, but it has to be a third party that provides 100% site visits in order to be counted in our spend. So all of those things are on our website for you to see. What we would recommend that you do for us, the way, since we don't have a portal that you have to register in, if you can send Mary, since she is our kind of first stop, your capability statement and a list of your current and recent contracts, who you've done business with. Highlight any of those that you may, that are in the generation or the retail space for electricity or gas. We want to see, it's just, I think this industry coming out of telecom and I've been in different, obviously many different jobs, this industry is really, truly one of the most, they don't want to be, they're risk averse. They do not want to be the first one to use a new supplier. So if you've done business with another electric company or another retail electric provider, let us know that. If not, let us know what experience you might have had with another customer that would be similar, maybe in the energy industry or one of the pipeline companies, something like that. Just something that would have a relevance to the type of business that we do. Or if you're in advertising on the retail side, have you done something maybe with other companies that use call centers or that do outbound call sales, that type of thing, telesales. So include that in your list of current and recent contracts. So Mary is really fully empowered to be able to go out with as much information as possible and identify the right people within the business as well as in supply chain to try to bring you into and introduce you. Once you've sent that, give her a couple weeks to be able to take it, look at it, and identify who she might want to match you up with, and then follow up with a phone call and see if there's a possibility of presenting to her, specifically to she and I, to folks from the supply chain organization. So she'll manage it. We may have you, if it's something that we don't really understand your commercial qualifications, we may have you just present to the supply chain professional first, that is the category manager for that, to make sure you're really commercially qualified to do business with us. Because the last thing we want to do is run you out of business too, because whatever we're doing is going to have, insurance requirements. We have unusual transportation insurance requirements, for instance. Because if you happen to drive onto one of our power plant sites and take out a transformer, Texas goes dark. So the consequential damages from that are huge. So because of that, we have some non-traditional transportation insurance requirements. So certain things like that, she'll know. And if there's a specific or a niche area where you operate, we'll be able to get you with that category manager first to commercially pre-qualify you. Then she'll also know from a technical standpoint, once you're commercially pre-qualified, do you need to go to anybody in our engineering group to be pre-qualified in that space? And then finally, that's when we get you to the site pre-qualification, that end user, whoever that may be, whether it's at a power plant or if it's within our advertising group and we need to bring you into the social media side. So wherever that may be in the business, that's what she'll do. And once you follow up with her after you've sent her as much information on your company as you can, she'll be able to tell you, here's kind of what our next steps are going to be. Or we are very upfront and honest, say we really don't have any opportunity right now. We might 2 years from now, call me back in 6 months or call me back next quarter and kind of ask us, she'll tell you, or I'll tell you, or Heather Burge will tell you when the next best time is to follow up with us to make sure that you're still top of mind, but you're not chasing something that there's no opportunity for the next 2 years. We'll keep you informed of that. Also make sure, and this was not corrected, this needs to be corrected, ensure your NMSDC certification business description is up to date. That's what I was talking about earlier. It is so important because that's how our category managers will source you. is what does your business description describe you as doing? If you have direct access to some of our category managers or to the end user business, many times you may know somebody at one of our power plants that we don't even know. So if you have those relationships and you know them, we want you to use those and go directly. We do not mind that at all, but just keep us informed so we can advocate on your behalf. And it doesn't look like the right hand and the left hand don't know what we're doing. And that way you've got that extra champion internally. You know, one of the things that I've said for years is I see there are really kind of 3 categories of supply chain diversity professionals. Some are the gatekeepers that really, and you know, unless you wine me and dine me and take me out to dinner, you're never going to respond to you or get you in our business. That's not us. There are those that are referral centers. You get a laminated card of all their buyers and their phone numbers at every trade show. Problem is, not one of them can pick up your phone call because they've got 5,000 of them that they did from the last referral card you passed out. And then there are true advocates. And that's really what Mary, Heather Burge, and myself are. We want to know as much about your company as we can know so that we can truly advocate on your behalf. So even if you're already doing business at one of our plants, we want to look at you and say, okay, how can we grow you into some of our other plants? Or if you're doing business with one of our brands on the retail side, how do we maybe introduce you into the other brand managers on some of the other sides? So that's really what our role is and what we want to do. So keep us informed of any contacts that you may already have in the company, just so we can continue to advocate for you and help grow your business within the company. And like I said, if you are in the generation space, the power generation, you'd ever have to be on site at a power plant, you will need to be listed in ISN Net World. And we can certainly walk you through what that process is and how to get your documents in there. It's very critical. When we moved to that space, we had a lot of issues with a lot of our smaller businesses because of all the what it is you have to have all your, for those of you who don't know, you have to have all your safety documents uploaded for whatever type of environment you might work in. And so a lot of our smaller businesses didn't really know what they needed to have, and it asked for NAICS codes. That is done by NAICS codes. And based on what your NAICS codes are, that's how the system determines what safety programs you need to have in place. So what we were finding was a lot of our smaller businesses really didn't know how to put the correct NAICS code. So they were all of a sudden having to provide all this information they really didn't need to provide. So that's what our team can help you with that as well. We'll help you navigate that. What we don't want you to do, again, I'm sure you've all heard this, don't ask us what we need. I mean, we need everything, right? Anything an electric generator or a retail provider would need, we need that. We're gonna need different parts of it at different times. I'm gonna talk about some specific opportunities in a minute. But again, going out to our website and seeing what we really do, we need you to come to us and tell us what differentiates you on a product or a service that you know we need. And here's how I'm going to help Vistra Energy. Here's where my company is going to bring a competitive advantage to Vistra Energy. That's the kind of conversation that we'd like to have with you. As I mentioned, we'll let you know when we're working with you. Mary will let you know. Call back next quarter, call back next month. We've got something coming up in third quarter, so call me at the end of August. We want to make sure you're top of mind for a September, October bid we know we have coming out. Or we really are not going to have anything for the next 2 or 3 years. So, you know, give me a call about once or twice a year, just in case the business model changes. But right now, we just bid it out, and it's not going to come up for bid for another 2 years. So we'll let you know that as well. We also ask that you don't go around us. Frequently we'll have supply chain diversity, and I will use this, particularly in the staffing area. They may have 2 or 3 different salespeople. Maybe one of them will call us and 2 or 3 other ones will go directly to somebody they found on the website, and they're saying they're a diverse company, and because you have a supplier diversity initiative, you need to do business with me. And we won't know who you are. So we are not able to advocate or even tell them we know anything about it, and you automatically are one they put on the blacklist. So always work through supply chain diversity unless you have an existing relationship with somebody. And that's why I'm saying, let us know if you do. And then we're making sure that both the internal business and supply chain diversity are working hand in hand to support you and to advocate on your behalf. And also, you know, I know there are some companies out there that do so many things that you really can say, I can do this, or I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Pick your sweet spot, the thing that you are going to perform the best in, that really is the area where you are better than anybody else in the industry. Pick that one thing, let us know about that. Let us get you into the business doing that one thing that you perform so well at. And then we can kind of grow into maybe some of the other areas where you can provide products or services afterwards. But pick one sweet spot, come to us with that. Let us work on that, getting you in there, getting you qualified for that, and then we can move on after that. Next slide. So these were the opportunities kind of that we have going on today. As down at the bottom, I'll start kind of at the bottom, that Chinese finger torture. I'm sure you're all familiar with that little tube you put your fingers in and you pull against it and you can't get your fingers out, but if you pull one out at a time, they both come out. We, like many other companies I'm sure you're familiar with, have gone to a category strategy management system. So we're really trying to take all of our contracts to that 2 and 3 year contract, or I mean that 3 and 5 year contract term, so that they're easier to manage and that it's by category. So that's really had an impact on some of our local suppliers, our smaller suppliers, our site suppliers. So it's been difficult between supply chain, and especially as we've been acquiring companies and we've been rationalizing the supply chain and trying to really get the best and the brightest in there with new opportunities. So in addition to adding new suppliers, we're trying to just rationalize the ones that we have because we've been acquiring companies so quickly. So understand that going in, that we're going to have to find a fit for you. And that's where it's so important that you come to us with what your actual specific stellar product or services that you provide to us, so we can advocate for you and find an opportunity. And again, we'll tell you when. Right now, the hot areas for us are solar storage. So, I mean, battery storage, what I mentioned at Moss Landing in California. We're also converting an Oakland unit to battery storage as well. We have right now, again, all pre-COVID, but we anticipate this is still going to go the same direction, roughly the same time frame. Over the next 5 years, we intend on building out 8 solar farms just in the state of Texas. We're also looking at doing some additional conversion of plants that we're decommissioning in Illinois and converting those to some solar. So there's a lot of opportunity for solar. We just are in the process, actually. It kind of came to a halt with everything happening with COVID and China and some of the other issues going on solar panels. We were able to find one MBE that actually manufactured solar panels. And unfortunately, I followed up with them once, said we need to just get your information so that we can get you in here for this bid, and they never followed up with us. So right now, all of our solar panel bidders are 100% Asian-owned. They're Chinese companies. So that's why that's kind of slowed down a little bit because of everything going on right now. But I anticipate that will pick up. We did have one other MBE that came to us with a very interesting solution. What they do is they bought solar panel capacity. So if a manufacturer of the solar panels was, did a 1,000 panel run and it ran over and they wound up producing 1,005 or 1,006, but they only had a buyer for 1,000 of them, then they would take that extra 5 or 6, and this MBE would take that and then consolidate that with some other solar panel manufacturers to create a larger order. Although our orders were pretty big, so we were up there in line with the other ones, but there's a lot of capacity issues in the solar panel space right now. So if you are a manufacturer and you have the ability to pivot to producing solar panels, I would highly recommend that, because we don't have very many in the US that can do it to the size or the capacity and the scale of what we're going to be needing it. So that's a real opportunity for MBE manufacturers. Plant decommissioning. As I mentioned, we have 3 power plants in the state of Texas that we've decommissioned over the last 2 to 3 years, and we're in the process of decommissioning some in Illinois as well. In Texas, we also have lignite coal mines. So we're decommissioning both the lignite coal mines as well as the lignite coal plants. And we just happened to have our strategic planning for 2020 with them yesterday, what's coming down the pike and what will we be able to do, because most of this is really kind of outside of supply chain management. They're doing things in more the corporate development space. One of the things they're looking for is literal liability transfer. We have got a couple of power plants in Illinois right now that we just want to sell them. We just want somebody to buy them, and then they can demolish them and sell the assets, the materials and whatnot for asset recovery costs. So liability transfer is what we're looking for there. If we cannot find that, if we can't find anybody to buy them from us just outright, then we will go to looking at, okay, how do we decommission them? Do we have asset recovery companies? I know there are several up, I believe, in the Northeast as well that we've already got on our list. Some of y'all may be on the call that do recycling of materials. And so they've contacted us about maybe being able to buy some of the equipment and then recycle or repurpose or resell some of that in the secondary market. So we've got a list of those. So plant decommissioning, and along with that, with the mine side, we also have ash pond. Mary, help me with the terminology for it. We're remediating the ash ponds. We've got a landfill that we're remediating up in the Northeast as well. So there may be some more of those that are coming down the pike over the coming years. So plant decommissioning, as we're moving out of our fossil fuels and more into renewables, is going to be an opportunity. Ironically, landscaping and snow blowing. So since we were primarily in Texas till 2 years ago, we were 15 power plants just in the state of Texas with one retail electric provider, TXU Energy. Now we're in the 12 states, 55 power plants, and then the multiple, I think there's almost 12, 13 retail brands now. But the individual plants had their own companies that were doing this. So we've really been looking for snow blowing and landscaping companies that can go in and manage some of this at some of these plants that are diverse, because previously they were not. Asset-based logistics. So I talked about transportation and trucking earlier on and the unique requirements we have for that from an insurance perspective. We just bid out last year a 3PL contract. One of our small businesses, Broussard Logistics, who's been a great partner to us for many years, was re-awarded that contract, and they are now doing it on a national basis. So they are a 3PL. They've got a great technology tool that manages all of it for us. What they are looking for, and they are a great partner for us in our multi-tier initiative, what they're looking for are asset-based carriers. So if you have trucks, particularly if you have flatbeds, and you can do any backhaul between the states that were listed in the mapping that was up front, that's what we're looking for in the logistics area. Door-to-door sales is another one. So as you know, probably you have all had somebody come knock on your door and ask you if you'd like to buy electricity. From a residential marketing perspective, that's one of the tools that we use, is that door-to-door sales. And so we will contract with companies that have folks that are trained in that area, just like call centers. We recently bid out the call center, so unfortunately there's no opportunity there. But in the door-to-door sales, we still have that opportunity that's up and coming, especially with these new brands that we've acquired. Where we have no opportunity today is in staffing. So I did use that as an example earlier. In 2015, we went to a business model where we would not use contingent labor. And kind of what precluded that was we had over 50% of our employees were eligible for retirement, particularly in the generation side, the luminant side of the business. And what they would do is they retire on a Friday, and then they would come back on Monday for their salary plus 30% through a staffing company or a temp company. And we could not get the business to stop doing that because there wasn't a whole lot of processes and procedures and knowledge transfer. So really those individuals were the folks that had the knowledge to do what we needed to do. We've tried to amend that over the years, have new policies and procedures put in place where that knowledge transfer is happening and being passed on so people are able to retire. But that was kind of what the original impetus was for the business model of moving to no more contingent labor. And we brought a lot of the recruiting and the activity to do that. We do our own temp people internally. So we've got internal folks that do that for us today. If we do have specialty niche things, we may go out to the market to find them, but it's very seldom. In fact, we had, I want to say about 9 or 10 diverse suppliers that had an MSA to do this over the last 2 years and have not gotten one rec for it. So just as we're not even getting the companies that we have under contract any opportunity there. So as a matter of practice, we really have no opportunity to introduce any new staffing companies unless you are so specific and so niche to something that we have either in generation for nuclear, say for instance, or in the retail side, then there's not any opportunity. So I just want to manage that expectation. Same thing with the direct hire. Especially with a lot of the battery storage that we're doing on the technology side, we kind of, the pendulum has swung. We started out with Accenture and HCL had outsourced almost all of our technology services. HR, finance had all been at one point outsourced to Capgemini. Then we kind of started moving it back in, switched to HCL and Accenture for technology services and for finance as well. And when we rebid it 4 or 5 years ago. And in the last 2 years, as we've started acquiring companies and changing our business model under our new CEO, we have started bringing it all back in-house. So we want to retain that intellectual property for the battery storage overlays that we're developing for a lot of what we're doing in the solar space. So we really are trying to bring it all in-house and not have any direct outsourced individuals. And so when we acquired Dynegy and Creus, we had a total, I think, of about 40 direct hire companies, and we downsized that to 9, rationalized that supply chain to 9 direct hire firms under contract. 4 of those, or 5 of those, I'm sorry, are diverse companies. So we do have diversity, inclusion in that space. We're just not adding anybody to that area right now. And don't anticipate that we will be for another couple of years at least. Training, that's another one where we have a very robust internal group, particularly as we acquired Ambit. We brought in, we took it even from a manager level up to a director level. So we are doing most of our training in-house now. We do have an outsourced partner, I guess, that does the external training that's been under contract for several years. Our tool is Workday, if any of y'all are familiar with that. But most of the face-to-face training or even physical training is done in-house through our organizational development team. And then MRO materials. That's another one we just bid out, 5-year contract. We went through a very, like almost a 2-year sourcing process for this because we did it by buckets. So there's really just not any opportunity. If you provide industrial supplies or if you're a distributor of equipment, more than likely we're not going to have any opportunity there. So next slide. I think I should be getting close to the end. We do have a very robust tier 2 or multi-tier program as well. Mary is also responsible for managing that. Fluor is our primary alliance partner for all of our plant maintenance and labor. So anything that has to do with outages, anything that's just ongoing maintenance of the plants, whether it's scaffolding, well, I'm sorry, Brand Safeway does the scaffolding, but whether it's turbine repair, boiler, welding, any of those type of things, Fluor typically does that for us in our non-collective bargaining, our non-labor shops. And then Day & Zimmer has been the identified supplier for our closed shops. Although I will say this is a new model that we just put in place 2 years ago. We've been kind of trying to roll it out, particularly with the Dynegy acquisition going into these other plants. And we've not had a whole lot of success with Day & Zimmer. Most of it has gone to Fluor. We have even some shops where they really are not going to go into that are labor union related. So I know you have a lot of labor specific closed shop, I think in the Northeast. If you do some things in this area, let us know for plant maintenance and labor, because there may be opportunity through Fluor or through Day & Zimmer for some of that plant maintenance. In addition to, you never know if there may be some small things that we may be able to do directly with you. Brand Safeway is another alliance partner that's doing our scaffolding, insulation, painting, abatement support. So that's ongoing throughout the year. But as you know, in the electric industry, at least in the generation side, we're really focused on planned outages. So we schedule all of these 55 plants to be down for a period of time, typically in the fall and in the spring. Some of them may have 2 in 1 year. Some of them may not have 1 for 2 years. So, but every other year, at least, every one of them has a planned outage plan. And that's going in and doing maintenance on turbines, again, generators, boilers, things of that nature. So let me get this off of my screen. So Brand Safeway, if you're in one of those areas, we can facilitate an introduction to them. They do report to us quarterly, and they give us, we work with them on an annual utilization plan, letting us kind of know what they're going to be doing through the year, who they're working with, and then we work with them on introducing some new suppliers to them as well. Accenture, as I mentioned, in our technology services organization, they do software applications for us. Again, that is diminishing even with them. So they're really performing probably 100, well, close to 100% of it themselves. But we still introduce companies to them that may have, like I said, a very niche expertise on the software applications for generation or for retail. And then Broussard Logistics was the 3PL provider that I referenced earlier that it has our transportation contract. We just signed off on it about 6 months ago. So we've got at least another 2 to 2.5 years before we'll be bidding that out. That was a 3-year contract with, I think, 2 one-year options. And as I stated, they were a supplier to us for the past probably 10 years. So they're a very good partner to us. So I don't anticipate there being a whole lot of opportunity there for at least the next 2 to 3 years. But through tier 2, if you're asset-based, we'd like to meet you. So next slide. Okay, I think that was it. Am I kind of on time? I think I'm right on time. So Joanne, if you want to open it up to live Q&A. I don't know how many, I kind of saw some chat questions popping up. Hopefully you're able to get those answered, but if you still have questions, we're happy to answer them now.
I really understand it.
Sorry, I unmuted everyone and I didn't unmute myself. So everyone has been unmuted. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask.
It may be an information overload.
Okay. So last call for questions.
What about the ones on the chat?
I think that they were answered. Let's see.
You want to go, yeah, just go through them? Anybody else had similar ones?
Well, what I saw actually through the chat, and I did answer those. Individuals were asking, one person had submitted a question about telling me what they did. I said, submit your capability statement. I responded just directly back to them, and then I gave my email address to everyone. So as Heather stated, I am one of the people that actually do the pre-qualification, and I would love for you all to send your capability statements over. And as she also stated, you know, give me at least a week or two, then I will go through those and then schedule some time to have maybe a 30-minute call with you if I foresee that we do have some opportunities. One of the things that we've actually started doing again is we have an opportunity funnel, and it's been very useful for myself. And what we do is we have our category managers go in and put any opportunities that they foresee in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And so then I can go in and I can see that, and you send me your capability statement, and then we have a conversation. I can let you know if we do have some opportunities available.
Heather, good morning. This is Eric Hutchison from Sci Systems Technology. We met about a year ago, and I had sent you information on our company. We're an IT services and solutions company. We have experience working with some of the utility companies here in the Northeast. So you had responded maybe about 6 months back that, you know, you forwarded my information to the appropriate IT people. But I just wonder, should I take the time and send the information to Mary and just kind of refresh and update her?
You know, I would absolutely do that. And here's the reason why. In March, we had, March of last year, actually, we had a big turnover of folks because that's when we do our bonuses. So our entire technology services team turned over. We didn't get them all hired until probably the end of the year, I think, where we had replaced everybody. So definitely send that to Mary again. Let her take a look at introducing you. And again, if it's been a year, which I think it has been, there may be things that have changed. So definitely go ahead and send that to Mary, and that way she can get with our technology services team to see if there's something. And if not, she'll let you know.
Okay, thank you, Heather. And I just thank you. You were very responsive. It took a while, but I appreciate your follow through. So I'll definitely refresh our information with Mary, and thank you for doing this today. Much appreciated.
We will try to respond, even if it's not with good news. We'll at least try to let you know.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so thank you again, Heather, Mary, and Heather for partnering with us today for this How to Do Business with Vistra Energy webinar. We really appreciate your time, and thank you to all the participants for being with us today. During this pandemic, we understand how much has changed for your businesses, and we are trying to adjust our programming to ensure that our services provided can meet your needs. So if you have any updates or any suggestions, we're happy to hear them, and we hope that you stay safe and stay healthy and have a great afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, the presentation will be shared later, and the recording will also be available. So have a wonderful afternoon, and thanks again for your time today.
Thanks so much, Joanne and Peter, for letting us do this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.